4, right? I've done a lot of these bad boys. This is one of my favorite people, one of my favorite guests. Krista Wallace is she is legitimately probably one of the sweetest people you'll ever meet. Super talented, incredibly gifted with everything she does, honest to God. The only person that doesn't believe it is her, right? And you just have to watch the work and you'll see it. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, it's one of those things where you see it go and you're like, holy cow, amazing. And we'll talk about some of those things, but she's like, okay, now I'm really nervous. Now I was nervous before, now I'm really nervous. How do I live up to this?
I should have brought
Right.
wine.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Yeah. That's fair. But the thing about, so for me, I'm naturally rebellious in the sense that I am going to do my thing. I'm not interested in hurting anybody. I'm not interested in like, I'm not interested in like just raising a ruckus for the sake of the ruckus, but I'm here to do what I'm here to do. And I'm going to do it. And I'm really not going to worry. And I don't worry about it the same way a lot of other people might. It's like, are you worried? I'm going to piss people off. I've already done it in this life, and I'm going to do it long for probably for the remainder of my life. It's just the way it is. So this has been, all in all, a shitty time. Like, if we're going to be very honest, or very, very honest about this, one of the cruelest times we've all lived through. The trauma everybody has experienced in the last year has been ridiculous. The lack of credibility at the very top has made it worse. We have made ourselves poorer. We have done a lot of things to each other this year that I honestly think, looking back, we are going to regret. Right? I that desire to have an established order in a time like this, while understandable, I think has done more damage than anything else out there. That's my opinion. Like it, lump it. That's just my opinion. Right? But here's the thing, okay? So when this happened, literally, so a year ago, a little over a year ago, I did my first Storytime podcast with my novel, The Cloud Diver, which I hadn't released yet as a book. Like I said, I was going to do an audiobook, try an audiobook with it. And I thought about C.S. Lewis. Because C.S. Lewis, what he did during World War II when London was being bombed and it looked like there was going to be a tomorrow, he went out and read what would become Neo-Christianity, right? And that book, I mean, it sounds stupid, right? Why are you reading on a radio station when London is being bombed? There might not be any tomorrow. But on the other hand, it's also the most rebellious thing you can do, because what you're saying when you do this is that life goes on. Mm-hmm. No matter how bad it might seem, no matter how bad it gets, right? Life goes on and things can happen. I saw this year, in spite of all the stupidity I've seen and all the stupidity I'm going to see for the next couple of years as a result of what happened last year, I saw an opportunity. Because why not be creative right now? Why not do things that you want to do? Everybody talks about life is short, and everybody gets that. But here's the other part. Here's the other part of that. Life is long on possibilities. What better time than when things look the most uncertain to make a course correction? What better time to pivot? What better time to reevaluate what really matters to you?
Yep. Yeah. When I started my podcast in my trailer, one of the things I said was that this is the opportunity. People need stories, and people need a way to get through this being a tough time. And I kind of like that notion of it being rebellious and saying, no matter how tough things are right now, we're going to get through this, and I'm going to defy everything that says this is a tough time by continuing to do my project and what I want to do. And I'd thought about doing a podcast for quite a long time. It's funny. I was actually thinking about how the first time I was a guest on your podcast was about 2 years ago during Creative Inc. And then nearly a year ago, we had a great long chat, not on your podcast, but, on here about how I was interested in starting a podcast, and you were very encouraging and gave me your thoughts on how to do it and all those sorts of things. And so here I am, nearly a year into having started my own podcast, which is something that I had been thinking about doing for a long time, about reading my own work on my podcast. And I had talked to a lot of people about it, and I got good responses about how this was a good idea. So when COVID happened, I went, oh, now is the time. I think this is the time to share my story and to try this thing that I've been thinking of doing for a long time. And what else am I going to do? I can't go anywhere.
That's part of it.
Which is
that's not technically true. You still could. It's just it comes with a price tag now.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm quite content to stay home, though. Like, I've had this conversation with a lot of people too, how I am an introvert at heart. And so if you're going to tell me that, oh, I have to stay home, I mean, I'm not allowed to go out and do all of the regular things that I usually do. Oh, what a shame. I have to stay home and write all by myself. And
yeah, I mean, there's never the phrase "go to your room." It never meant. So it's like freedom's like, really? I can do that? Yeah, woohoo! Yeah. Right? I mean that's the way it goes, right? We live in a. Now there are things about it I'm not so crazy about, right? For me, the Orwellisms of this time are not something I'm a really big fan of, and I think, honestly, we're gonna have to come face to face with some of that. I think if we're gonna get out of this, to be perfectly honest. But all that being said, right? This is like life is like honestly the most rebellious thing life is about is living. Look, we all know we ain't getting out of this. We know it. But it's not a like a fortune being told here. I'm gonna die. Congratulations. Life is fragile. It always has been, it always will be. There was no such thing as safe. There really isn't. So you might as well look at it and go, okay, what do I want to get out of life? What do I want? What do I want to accomplish? How do I best live?
Mm-hmm.
That is, and I think ultimately it's rebellion. One of the things I was always told when I was a kid from my dad was, a lot of people in this life exist, but very few of them know what it is to actually live. And and I've taken that to heart with my whole life, because I don't like we got this great gift of almost nothing. Like we have the blessing of forgetfulness. Everything we do at some point is going to go off into the distant horizon. So we got the freedom now as a result to do whatever it is we want to do. Right? And that's a beautiful thing. That's not a terrible thing at all. It's a beautiful thing. We can go out there and we can do the things we feel compelled to do. And so I was talking to my grandmother last night, and so I am right now in Windsor. I'm giving it one more week to exclusively look for a job in Windsor, Ontario.
Okay.
Next week I look abroad. I don't have a dime to my name. I don't care, right? I just don't. Like I've hit that. I'm gonna do. Like I said, I'm a rebellious son of a bitch. I'm going to do what I'm gonna do, and I don't really care, right? But that's a freedom. But like, I know there's pressure. I know life is changing, and it always will change, and it'll be scary. It'll be nice. It'll be scary again. It'll be nice. It'll be scary again. I'm just passing through the wave, man. I got to do my own thing, and that's how I see it. You might think I'm crazy, that's okay. But that's what I'm gonna do, right? So, I've already been looking at a couple places that I would go to if things go. I don't know how it all will work out in my head at this moment in time. I really don't care though right now.
It's about, an opportunity presents itself to you and you make a decision whether this is something you want to say yes to or maybe not. I've had opportunities come my way and the timing was right, or something just didn't feel right about it. I wasn't comfortable with it for whatever reason, and so you just make a choice and no regrets, because in that moment that was the right choice. If you look back later and go, I wonder if I should have given that a try, well, then you can either create a similar opportunity for yourself now that feels better, or you just move on and go, okay, well, that was a thing that I maybe could have done but didn't actually, and on we go.
I'm cool with making mistakes. I hate mistakes. Right. I'll make a million mistakes, and I'm so happy making those mistakes. As I get older, I actually enjoy them more. I don't know if that means that I got more brain damage or less brain damage. We'll let the world figure that one out. But the thing is, but I'm just at that wonderful point in my life where it's like, you know what? I'm going to just I'm going to try everything that will make me happy.
Mm-hmm.
I will fail spectacularly, or I will succeed spectacularly. I will get yes, or I will get no, and either way, I'll learn something, and that's the best thing, right? So,
again, like there's no right choice and wrong choice. There's just the choice you make at that time, and so then you just go with whatever comes from that. And if something turns out to not be what you were hoping, then as you say, you learn from that and then move on.
Exactly.
I'm really weirded out by this screen being flipped around. It bothers me. No, it's just that this is my left side. And it's I guess I'm used to seeing a mirror image. It's
all right, let's try something.
It's okay.
Do you want to do it like that? Do you want that?
It doesn't matter.
I'm trying to make you comfortable here.
It's just all in my head.
It's all in your head.
Okay. It's okay. I'm used.
Deep breath. You got this. You're just like me. I'm no, but listen. They gave me an award for making an ass of myself on the air. I've done it. I'm good at that. Don't worry. Happens to me all the time. All the time.
Yeah.
Right. But you have done your own podcast.
I have.
So I'm going to ask a big, giant question. We're going to see where we go with it. What have you learned?
I'm apparently good at editing. I had no idea going into it that would be something. But actually, when I look back, like I get a lot of listeners getting in touch with me and saying, "Oh, wow, your editing so seamless," and that's partly because I pay very close attention to detail. So I really love. Can you hear my phone ringing?
Yes, I can. It's okay.
My husband's
home. Listen, we're live.
Exactly.
It's gonna happen. I've had babies show up on the stream. I've had dogs show up on the stream. It's all good.
Yep. I just don't know how much you can hear. Anyway, so I'm very meticulous and I pay very close attention to details. So it turns out that translates very well into editing my podcast and my audiobook stuff. So that is something I have learned. Another thing I have learned is that people are really enjoying my story, which is very gratifying.
Not surprised.
It's just an amazing feeling though, because I know when we first talked 2 years ago or however long that was, we've talked a lot about imposter syndrome, and we all have our moments of going through that. And I think something that never goes away completely, but having put my story out there, I'm starting to get really positive feedback from listeners, which is just really encouraging and gives me confidence and makes me think that, oh, okay, yes, I can do this. So it's, I'm having fun. I'm enjoying it. And I'm really appreciating the when listeners get in touch with me and tell me how mad they are at my characters, and I had to stop listening for a little while because I was so mad at that character, and yeah.
Well, that's good. That
It's
means
fun.
the story has emotional resonance, so automatically it's good. Like whether people like it or hate, I mean, they feel something.
It's
And
good.
that's important. That's really important. I can't wait till my next one comes out because that one terrifies me.
Okay.
I'm drawing it on top of writing it.
Oh my. So you're drawing like sort of like doing a graphic novel kind of thing, or?
No, it's mostly prose, but so this is the thing, right? I have this whole concept of, okay, so another observation about this time is we're kind of in a weird Tower of Babel. We are literally linked together, if you really want to break it all down, to a light switch. Click, we can talk to each other. Click, we don't talk to each other. Click, we have power. Click, we don't. We live in an incredibly fragile system, honest to God. And I wanted, so what I decided to do, like one of the things, okay, so if you're like me, you get caught in YouTube rabbit holes, you get caught in like Twitch streams, you get caught in all these things that can distract you when you're on this magical machine and you're connected to the interwebs. So what I wanted to do, because the story is about for a guy that gets cut off from this technology, unplugged for 30 days, right? Unplugged for 30 days. It's a prison sentence. Instead of actually having a prison, you just get cut off from the technology. It's cheaper.
Oh, cool.
It's cheaper, but also it's an interesting lever, I thought. And the first, but I wanted to have a time before that because what I wanted to do was I wanted to eliminate, outside of maybe one little thing I'm going to have to add, I think at the very beginning, I don't want you to hear his thoughts for the first part of the story, because the idea is he's so plugged in, he doesn't have time to hear them.
Okay.
Right? And so when the lights go off, because I've noticed too, when I've had my own personal like come to Jesus meetings with life, you can't run, you can't hide. It's just you and the abyss, whatever that abyss is. So when you get to that moment, you hear everything, you see everything, you do everything. So it's such a neat contrast, right? Switches on, there's all this ambient noise distracting you. You can get distracted and diverted and all these things, because it happens in life, right? We constantly distract ourselves, right? Sometimes from shit we need to do, and I'm as guilty of this as anybody else. We all do this. But at the same token, everything we do in this life, I mean, at some point sooner or later we have to face it. So when the lights go off, he faces like his inner darkest moments. And then when the lights go back on, it's interesting because now I'm still cheating a little bit. So the first part is sequential, but the second, like the last part, like part 3, where the lights are back on, there's still going to be pictures there, simpler stuff, but it's not going to be like the same concept. Now it's trying to distract him and get him back plugged in again. But now that you've heard yourself, do you want to go silent again? Right? That's so, I mean, sometimes when you go through a very profound, like, and this is, I think a lot of people are going to experience when they come out of this, is you go through a very profound, life-changing experience, and you have a very clear idea of who and what you are. There are things we're definitely going to miss. I can't wait to meet people and hang out, and the parties and probably the debauchery we're all going to be doing for the first like week or two, and we're done. It's going to be
much debauchery. Oh yeah.
Yeah. But you wake up and say, what happened? We got married. I didn't drink that much, did I? Look, Beyonce's the ring. Yes, I did. But the thing about that, right, is you go through a very profound experience. You're never going to look at the world the same way again.
Oh, for sure.
Right, and that's what I'm trying to encapsulate in the last one. It's like the world he had, the world he was thrown into, and now what does he take with him from the world he was thrown into back into the real world, quote unquote, real world, whatever that is. Right. So I'm using the pictures to actually capture both the world as he started, but also the world that's trying to lure him back. And I think it's been a growing process for me. So it kind of like it's got a little bit of a comic book sequential for like the first 8 pages. It's going to be an 8-page short story. I hope people like Legend of Zelda 8-bit because that's what I'm drawing as the stream, and all the dialogue will be like Twitter stream style. But that's right. But we're talking about like getting out of our comfort zones and stuff like that. I'm absolutely terrified.
Neat. That sounds like a neat project. I remember at the beginning of all of this when the world first shut down and there were hardly any cars on the road, and there was really amazing drone footage of various cities with no people on the streets and no cars on the roads, and just how eerie that was. And there was so much talk on social media about, oh, let's keep this, let's remember this, let's remember the lack of pollution and just how quiet it is. And I remember thinking at the time that no, I mean, it's really, I really love the silence, but let's be real, I don't think people's memories are that I don't think people's memories are that long. Like we're going to forget all of those parts about the beginning of the pandemic. And guess what? As soon as things started opening up again, we're back to tons of traffic on the road, and the traffic reports reporting all of the car crashes and everything. And so I kind of I miss the quiet from the very beginning of this.
Do you want to hear like my first experience with that quiet? It happened actually 10 years ago. Not even during this. Like the first time I noticed a quiet like that, right after my first time visiting the U.S. at like my Detroit after the housing collapse in 2008. So my grandmother, when I was a kid, lived at Lafayette Street in Detroit, and you could literally see Tiger Stadium. This is back when Tiger Stadium was still up and running, right? And you'd see Michigan Avenue as this busy, bustling road. You see at different parts, you could see like the I-75, like cul-de-sac / expressway, like that's where she was. Like, and I remember, and now she lives somewhere else. But I mean, that's always my first thought. When I think of Detroit, I always think of that particular scene when I first think of it. And we are going down Michigan Avenue from the tunnel because it was the first time we used the Michigan Avenue to our house, and it was quiet. Like there were parts of that whole trip till you got to Dearborn. There was nobody there. Like nobody. Like there's just the road, people driving on it, and nothing around you from like anywhere you look. Wow. It was nothing. Wow. You could hear everything. And it was surreal because I remember it when I was a kid. It was busy, hustling, bustling. In 2008 or 2009, nothing. Absolutely nothing. And when you're in it, you never fully forget it. And that's kind of like where we're at, and kind of where we're going with this is we're going to forget some things, but some of us are like, I will never forget, like for this time, Vancouver, going back and forth on the way home from work while the world was slowly shuttering out of existence, little by little. It was crazy. I'd start the day and I wouldn't know what would actually be open or closed on my way. I'd have to take a bus and 2 trains, right? And at absolute scariest moments. And then when you know, like you know what I'm talking about here, when you're downtown Vancouver, all the homeless characters that are on the street doing their thing, like that are just part of that ambiance, they're not even there. And you're like, this is an abandoned, whoa. Yeah. Like what the hell, right? Like, it was like, yeah, and I'll never forget that as long as I live.
Spooky.
How about you? What would like when it first happened, like what did you like? There had to be that moment of crazy, like what the hell's going on around here?
I think the thing that really hit us the most was that just the way it affected so many people in different ways. Like, my husband works in the live event industry. So, of course, the live event industry was one of the first things to shut down, and it will be one of the last things to reopen. There was a big, huge dental conference at the Vancouver Trade and Convention Center, and his was in doing all of the labor and equipment for setting up the conference. And of course, there were a whole lot of it became a super spreader event, as it were, which we didn't have that name. We didn't have that name yet at that time. But that was sort of the last big event that the company was involved in. And, he's got 500 plus freelance theater technicians working for him, and they're suddenly all out of work. Just boom, there's nothing. And the movie industry shut down, and everything shut down. So, and that's just Vancouver, that's just one company in one city, and all across the country and all across the continent, there are more and more people who work in the live event industry who are just suddenly out of work and no hope of getting anything for a long, long time. So when the government started stepping in and supporting everybody, it was just like a huge relief every time another thing was added to that their program to help people. So that was a huge relief, and that was kind of the way in which it hit us from the outset. Like, all of my work shut down, and that was okay for a while. They figured a way to move that stuff online, so that's good. But yeah, it was just, that was the thing that brought me down the most at the start, was just the number of people who were out of work for a long time and have had to find other things to do. A lot of those people have gone to the movie industry now that the movie industry has opened up a bit. But I can't imagine what that's like for, well, at least I can try to imagine what that's like for people who have to just, you were talking before about finding a pivot, having to find something else to do to support themselves until the industry reopens, and it's going to be a long time. So,
well, I think the movie industry probably will, I do think there's going to be a paradigm shift. It's starting to happen, but I think there's going to be a paradigm shift. I think the movie industry in Vancouver will probably open up more and more as time goes on.
Oh, sure, they're filming stuff now, and thank goodness, because that's keeping some people in work
alive.
Right now. Yeah.
No, and I know this because I have friends that are doing it, but it will grow again back to what it kind of was. I think that one will recover, I think, quicker than most of all that. I think the one that's going to be long term is live events. I'm not sure how that's going to work going forward. No. That all said, it's funny you mentioned that. I was planning on quitting my job, but the last thing I wanted to do before I left Vancouver was go see a dentist. Right. So I was very annoyed because it was just like the way the timing worked out. I was literally, I just finished I was going to get into the movie industry. That was one of the reasons I went out to actually Vancouver, right? Because I wanted, it's something I hadn't done, I wanted to do. And so what ended up happening was I was like, okay, I took my first day at Taylor's. I'm going to take advantage of my benefits before I walk out the door. That was the plan. I was going to take advantage of my benefits, and then I was going to go. So then COVID happens, and then I see that the dental, no, anywhere else in the country, I could have done it. But no, Vancouver, you of all places were done first. Like, you were done. And I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me.
Oh, man.
So literally, that was like, oh my God. Because I was going to use my benefits and I do. Like, when Mexico, I can go to Mexico now. I just would rather not go through that headache right this minute. there's a tooth here I gotta fix, and some other things I want to start doing some more things with my teeth eventually. Now, obviously, I was going to go to Mexico anyway to do most of this stuff, but yeah, it's way cheaper to do it there, and they're actually better than here. Believe it or not.
Our dentist is open now. They've got it all down to a science where you go in.
Yeah, but they're actually better in Mexico. Believe it or not, because they're cheaper. They actually get more practice than our doctors do. Believe it or not, when I did my first dental, I went to Mexico the first time to fix my teeth, and I did the research on it. They actually, on average, they deal with more patients, they deal with more surgeries. They have a much higher practice than, say, Canadian, because we price ourselves right to such a degree that it's expensive to get our teeth fixed here. Now, when BC's cheaper in Alberta when it comes to fixing teeth, that's saying something. But I mean, it's the truth. No, it's actually true. BC is actually cheaper in Alberta when it comes to fixing teeth. I did all this research a long time ago, so I will say it's like this is one of those things. Like, honestly, if you go to fix your teeth and you need to do a lot of work, go to Mexico. It's actually better and cheaper and actually probably safer, honestly, than what you're going to get up in Canada. True story. Yeah. And you get a trip out of it. And you get a trip out of it.
No, I'm very fortunate. I've never had any major issues with my teeth, so I just go in and get them cleaned, and then I leave.
That's cool. Yeah. I started about 13, 14 years ago. And so that's where most of my damage was done. Some of it's totally me, but that's where a lot of the damage was done. So, no, you learn that stuff. So I was going to do that, and then I ended up leaving about a month earlier than I anticipated, but I was going to quit my job anyway. It was because, let's be honest, like you've talked to me, I'd probably get myself fired eventually because I'm just one of the people, I don't want to be there. I'm just not.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to be there. It's just the way it works. Right.
The other way, I was just going to go back to your question about how this all affected us at the very start, of course, is that I don't get to see my kids. In some ways we're fortunate. I don't like that word.
No.
It's just the two of us here, so we just have to look out for the two of us. But it's really hard that my son and his wife live a very short distance away. But for a long time, we were not able to even have them on our back deck. Through the summer, we could meet up with friends and stuff in the park or have people on our back deck because we've got a good 2-meter distance. If one or two people sit over by the barbecue and we sit over by the door, that's 2 meters apart. So we can have guests on our deck. Of course, we haven't had any guests inside our house for a year. And my daughter lives about an 8 or 9 hour drive away. So we did go travel up there to visit her in August because my husband was doing some work in the theater. And we were very isolated. We weren't mixing with a whole ton of people, so it was a very safe situation. But of course, anyway, so that's the other thing, is just not being able to see my kids in person that much.
My grandmother lives in Detroit still, right? So I am literally from my house right now. I am 15 miles. So for those of you in Canada who want translation, it's about 25 kilometers away. It's not that far. Really, when you sit there and think about that, it really isn't that far. In fact, the city of Vancouver is bigger than the distance between my house and my grandmother's house.
Yeah,
right?
And you can't go see her, and that's hard. That's hard.
It's it. I mean, it's well. Here's the thing: you can. But there's a price. Then you gotta go through the
Yeah.
And the 14-day isolation process, you get, it's annoying. Like, it's incredibly annoying. It is what it is. Like I said, I do expect a pivot change somewhat this year, because I honestly think, like, I've already started seeing it. People are cracking, right? So I mean, and that's understandable somewhat too. We're creatures of contact. We really are, and we need that touch. We need that communication. We need that connectivity. If there's one thing I think that can absolutely be taken away from this time completely, is we really are all in this together, whether we would like to admit this or not. We really are, and we need each other.
And I reach out to somebody, every couple of days or so. I'll reach out to somebody I haven't heard from or talked to in a while, even if it's just via text, or make a phone call or whatever, and just say, hey, I'm just checking in, seeing how you are. Haven't heard from you in a while, and I don't know where we would be without this kind of technology to have virtual card game days and virtual dinner parties. And
we'd have broken this sooner. I'm being very I'm being very honest. If it wasn't for the fact that technology was here, either we might be over it faster, or we might be over it slower. It really depends on your point of view on that one. Right? It's one of those, because if there wasn't, like, honestly, it's like, if the lights went out tomorrow, pandemic would be over, because we'd have to interact a lot more. We have no choice. Right? No matter whatever the precautions might be taken, it would be like, well, if we don't, this is going to happen. So I mean, it's one of those situations where it's been both a blessing and a curse. Now, here's the cool thing: I'm in Windsor, you're in Vancouver, or relatively area, and we're having a wonderful discussion about stuff. So I mean, that's cool, and I dig that, and I think that's the best part of technology like this. But yeah, it's not designed for up close and personal meetings. It's just not.
Yeah, it's the next best thing, since I can't be in physical contact with my children or with my friends to be able to meet with them this way. Hear my daughter's voice. My son and his wife can at least come over and be outside, so that's something. But to be able to just to hear somebody's voice in this kind of a situation is, and I know a lot of people have it a heck of a lot worse off than I do. Like, we're doing okay, and I'm grateful for that. So and meanwhile, I'm continuing to be creative, as are you, obviously, and I think that's how we continue to get through this. Like, being able to spend more time on my writing, as well as doing my podcasting and my audiobook stuff. It's and having kind of having that alone time forced on me has been really good for me to manage my time. I know a lot of people are having more trouble than I am with being productive. They're certainly at the beginning, there was all of this pressure to, learn a new language or learn how to make sourdough bread and all of that sort of thing. And, you must spend your time wisely and be productive. And I never felt pressured to do that. It was just like, oh, great. Yay, I can do this. And so I'm doing fine with it, but I know a lot of people are really struggling with it.
So for me, it was funny because I made the decision, literally, when this happened, this honestly was the first thing in my head, and I know this might sound absolutely terrible, but it's the truth. How can I make money from this? I know that sounds absolutely horrifying, but I've already kind of had my face-to-face, like, I faced my mortality. I've had my own struggles with illness, with some other things that are too weird to describe to some people. So it's nothing. Unusual things have happened to me. So I'm just like, you know what? And I'm gonna like. So for me, it was just like, in one very real sense, for me, life never changed. It is still the same world we've always been in. It's just for the first time, North America can say this, I think, for the first time in a long time, that you're facing a crisis that you can't escape. We don't have the luxury of distance. Like, we don't. Like, it's the whole world's going through this, and so because we're a very young country, we don't really know. We don't have the experience. And people talk about the word privilege in terms of civil rights movements and stuff like that, but I would argue, honestly, the biggest form of privilege probably for North America is the fact that we generally don't experience things like this. This is like the first time, and whereas we were in the Middle East or the Far East or Europe, they've been through this plenty of times in their lives. So and again, whatever you may think of all their approaches, there's a lot more experience from all of their approaches than we have. We've had to actually figure out what the heck we're going to do in this.
Yeah, I worry a lot about other places that don't. It's much more difficult to isolate yourself from other people in other areas where populations are massive, and I worry about those people a lot.
They got their own methods. It's interesting, like something India did that, and I know this because I have friends that live in Pakistan and India. I asked them what they do. It's like, well, one of the things, and this is where I think we failed, but they didn't. Their small businesses took the extra action and they make the most sense because they're the best places to serve a community. So they would come in and they'd help take care of the elderly. They would work together a lot more, and that makes a lot more sense to me because if you have we destroyed our small business industry as a result of this. The countries that have been around a lot longer and have been through these things have actually used them to build stronger systems because it makes sense. The smaller businesses are going to care more about communities than the larger businesses are. Larger businesses are nations unto themselves. Smaller businesses are only going to have to worry about their local community because that's their bread and butter. Yeah. And that's what's like. So when we look at places like India, Italy, places where populations are really, really condensed, that's what they've done. Those small businesses have stepped up and have taken over a lot of the service stuff. Now, each country, it's a little different how they've done it, but that's what they did in India. Middle East did the same thing. Well, the only way I know the Middle Eastern cause, there's also a little bit of we just don't give a shit about some things, and I can understand that to some degree as well. It's just again, everybody's got their own way of doing things. But that's like I have faith that people will always find a way to live and carry on. Also the other thing too, I mean, the benefit of what they did over in India. I mean, okay, again, I'm not saying anything one way or the other, but their numbers are dropping even without the vaccines and stuff like that right now. So what tells me is whatever they're doing, good, bad, or indifferent, they're getting a result. They're going to get a result where they're going to walk away. And then if you look at a place like Wuhan, they're already post-pandemic. Like they're already there. I mean, the world. What's happening here is I think we are figuring out how we're going to approach this going forward because we've never been through something like this in the last century, and we have had the luxury of distance. So we have had to make some of these decisions that a lot of these other countries, again, India's been through many of disease. Pakistan, same thing. You look at even Australia, more than we have, right? You look at Europe, there's a history of it. Here, not so much.
Yeah. Right? We've been, in our own small way, we've been doing our best to, support our local small businesses and things like that, and trying to use our dollars to support those companies that are maybe struggling a little bit more than others. Yeah. Yeah.
No,
We
like
can,
it's no, yeah. How about this? How about for the rest of this conversation? Let's acknowledge the fact that North America's got some big decisions coming up this year that we have to as a group of people figure out what we want and what's important to us, and we'll just leave it there because honest to God, I mean, I don't mind COVID therapy. We've all had it, but you do way more interesting stuff. I mean, we all know it's there. Does that sound like a plan? Does that sound like a plan for you?
which, sorry?
Can we talk about some more interesting stuff?
Oh.
Like we can, yeah. Does that sound like more? Because
I was going to say we've been talking about COVID for like a long time.
Too much. No,
pretty sure there's some other things we can talk about that are.
There's a lot more. It's where the conversation went. I think okay. The last thing, but not really the last thing, just something I've noticed about just people we haven't connected with. Like honestly, we haven't connected with. I find that all of us have that conversation with each other. It's just one of those things because, well, yeah. What did you do? How did you survive? What did you experience? I think that's a very natural thing. And
varying methods of coping and that sort of thing, and how it's affected you, how it's affected me, how it's affected my friends.
Well, yeah, because we haven't spoken face to face in a very, very long time. So it's like, yeah. So how did you survive this apocalypse? And I think that's a normal, honestly, thing, right? So we've done that normal, honest thing. Let's go. Let's
go.
I'm just saying, yeah, no, I think we're all sick of it to some degree. Just it is what it is. It is what it is.
Just edit out that whole.
I can't. This is live.
Make a little note in the comments below that you can sort of skip to minute like 47 in the conversation and just.
If you want to ignore me and Krista's COVID therapy, go to 47:30.
Yeah. That's right.
Lots of booze. Moving on. No, so you've been writing more. So here, I'll show you. I'll show you some. I know you've been noticing what I've been doing in regards to like this kind of stuff.
Yes, that popped up in my Instagram feed today. So.
Yes, it did.
Yeah,
I'm getting better at that stuff. I've noticed that. I'm getting better.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I do not draw. I'm very artistic in a whole lot of ways, but drawing anything visual art is not one of my strengths.
So here's the thing. Like this happened like 2 years ago. I did a live show my sister hosted. She got me to hop on one foot and actually try to sound like a goldfish. I want you to think about that for just a second. I want you to think about that.
Oh, you're breaking up.
Hello?
You're breaking up. You're breaking up.
Okay. Hi, I'm there.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, hi.
Hi. So anyway, what I was saying is, so with my sister, I posted this anniversary thing of when I did that show and I launched my podcast in front of an audience and stuff like that. And it's funny because one of the things she did was she drew something blindfolded.
Oh, neat.
While I was drawing. Oh yeah, no, she's good. Like I always marvel at how talented she really is. And then it hit me like how good she was. It's like, you know what would be great if you actually did it or doing what I was doing right now. Because here's the thing, this is my 4th month. I'm not like, I am literally. I think the biggest thing I picked up from this time is that it's okay to suck. Like it's honestly, it's okay to suck. And if you don't, no, I say it like because check for trying to draw. I'm not saying you have talent or no talent for it. It's like whatever, right? It doesn't matter if it's this or something else you're doing, like your podcast, like the podcast and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing that gets into our heads as creatives, especially when we're trying to be good at stuff, is we don't necessarily we have to go through the process of being terrible at stuff.
Well,
now, I'm not saying, you're right? And for me, what held me back with starting to draw was, well, what if I suck? Because I have sucked pretty much my whole life.
and who cares?
But you have to come to that moment, though, right?
It comes back to deciding, like, why are you doing this? You know, am I doing this to please somebody else, or am I doing this because it's fun for me? And so, if that's why you're doing it, then go right ahead. And you don't have to be good at everything. That's something that's really tough to learn. If you're going to try something new, of course you're not going to be good at it right away. So just have a go and see if you like it. And then decide whether it's something you want to work at and try to be good at. Some things are going to be easier to become good at, and other things you're going to have to work harder. So then it depends on how badly you how badly you want to be good at it, and how important it is to you. If you just enjoy it, then it doesn't matter whether you're good at it or not. You know.
Well, okay, I'm going to turn the light on real quick because I want to continue this wonderful thought.
Bright light.
Bright light. Hey. I don't see it. I've said this joke a few times on some of my other podcast episodes, and that's this: I don't want to be the guy that's the creep in the basement, like the creep in the basement when you do an interview. Welcome from the hallowed balls of my basement. I am John Palresco, and this is my bat cave. I'm Batman. It doesn't work. I could do that maybe for Halloween. If I'm still doing this show in this form at Halloween, maybe I do that. I'm Batman, and I just talk like this.
Okay, I will look forward to that.
Yeah. But I reckon it kind of reinvented my whole approach to even writing, in this one sense, is that if I don't worry about it being good, right, and I just do it, I can always make it better. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Somehow, some way. So it's actually, like, if anything, illustration has taught me, it's freed me up with my other pursuits. I don't, right? I mean, when I did this podcast, I didn't worry about it being a perfect editorial thing, and I've gone through some periods, even as much until here, I had to go through some serious adjustments with this bad boy. But the truth of the matter is, right? When you eliminate that ability to be bad or good at something, right? And you don't worry about that, and you just do it. You suddenly can accomplish a lot more, and you can find yourself having fun, right? I still haven't gotten that stupid beak right. Daphne's beak is harder than it looks, let me tell you. I got most of it right. I know it's not even a big thing. It's just a little thing I got to do to kind of make that work. But I didn't quite get it right. It's like, but you know what? You can still tell that's Duck Dodgers. You can still know that's Duck Dodgers in the 24th and a half century, and you know he's claiming the planet in the name of Earth, and Mars claiming it in the name of Mars, and it's going to be lovely, and you know.
I actually wrote a little, and I guess I drew a little picture book for some friends of ours when they had one of their children, their first or the second one, I can't remember actually. But I wrote this little story, and I wanted to illustrate it. And I had the idea that instead of trying to draw the outline of the thing, I decided to work with, like, the negative space. So I used the pencil and I colored outside the lines of the image that I wanted to create. So it winds up looking, I don't have a pencil, but so just really roughly, it looks like that, where the inside of that is the image I'm trying to create, and the outside is just scribble lines. And so I don't know if I'm explaining it very well.
No,
but,
I get it.
It turned out really well. So you just make the shape of the thing by creating the scribble lines around the outside of it. And I made a whole picture book for them that way. And I've never done it since. It was the one and only time I ever tried it. But I had a lot of fun. I had an idea for a little story to write for them, and I wanted to create this thing for them. And so that's what I did. I tend to do that. I have this idea to do this one thing. I talked to you before about these. There was a quote I really liked, and so I wanted to create this quote on a banner and give it to my kids. So I came up with this way of designing this banner and writing this quote on. I kind of painted the quote on the banner, and so I get these ideas to do some sort of artistic project. And I just do that one project, and then that's it. I'm done. So I've tried a whole bunch of different kind of artistic things like that, visual art, I mean. I have tried all kinds of things and had fun doing them. Like you're saying, it's just, hey, let's try this thing because it's fun. And produced this item or items, and then I've given it to the person it was intended for. I did a bunch of quilting too one time. I went crazy and made a bunch of, I made a Christmas tree skirt and a bunch of Christmas placemats for a friend of mine. And then I've never done it since. I took up quilting to do this one project. It was a massive project. And then I finished it, and that was it. I was done.
Quilting's hard. It really is. It's not easy at all. And it takes some great. It takes a lot of skill to do it. It really does. I
didn't do anything fancy where you had to like measure stuff. I just made abstract shapes in that. It was fun.
That's still hard. I mean, here's the thing.
It's very time consuming. I'll tell you that.
No. It's hard. It's time consuming. So I knew there was someone I knew that was making a living for a while just doing quotes of superheroes. Just made yeah. Because that's. Look, man, art's everywhere. You just gotta be willing to look and find it and see it.
Yeah.
I'm just fortunate enough that a lot of people that are like I said, you're crazy, talented, and gifted. And even if you're not like what you consider good, I mean, the fact is you're an experimenter. You kind of dabble and try everything.
I do. I dabble in a lot of things. Some things I dive headfirst into, and others I just play around with, and then I'm done with that.
Yeah, well, but I think that's everybody. I think like if more people spent their time looking up their interests, right, chasing their interests and finding their passions. I mean, that's what you do. Like you're on like this never-ending quest to say what are the things I do that make me come alive to do them, whether they're good or not. But what makes me come alive to do it, right? And sometimes it's singing, which you can do. Like I said, they pay me. If I sing, they pay me money. They'll say that was sweet. Don't ever do that again.
That's definitely something I miss is my music. Yeah. We can't get together and rehearse, and we can't perform, and so I definitely miss that.
Actually, you can rehearse. Well, this is the advantage of this wonderful technology you have. I know bands that are still rehearsing with Zoom and stuff like that, and just getting together and doing their thing. Really cool thing. And I caught this walking from 7-Eleven by this church in Windsor here on Ottawa Street, and I hear singing, and I'm like, really? It's like 10 o'clock at night, so I go in there, and there's these two abbots in there. They're actually doing a choral singing. Yeah, it was really cool. Like I think, yeah, I hope. I mean, I'm just saying, like, not dwelling on it too much. But you do have Zoom. and Zoom isn't working, and you guys can get together with Zoom if one of you got an account and go, let's rehearse. Like, let's sing a beautiful song. I will not try to sing a beautiful song because I want people to come to the show, right? But where I was going with that was
Yeah, I kind of interrupted you there. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. That's what tangents are for. We go on tangents, right? I'll tell you a fun story actually. In that with CanCon, when I went to CanCon in Ottawa, not last year but the year before, I did CanCon for the first time ever. And the cool thing they do on the night of the night was the karaoke. You Aerosmith fans out there, I am so sorry. I am so sorry. I did so 20 years ago. I was able to do this song karaoke. I did it. I pulled it off for
Which
my birthday. Falling in Love is Hard on the Knees.
Okay.
9 Lives. I was able to do it. I was actually able to do it. His voice isn't that like from a pitch standpoint. His voice is very consistent in that song, right? 20 years ago, I knew it well enough to do it.
Cool.
2 years ago, not so much. I heard it. I thought I knew it. Like I can do some like for me, I could do Lincoln Park, some of it, not all of it. But I could do it. Some of it though. Oh my God. I just yeah. I like to sing. The world just tells me you're too soft. Just don't. Yeah. You literally shot God in the head. There, I Was Never Alive. How did you do that? And I have not seen Eric Andre. Tell me about him. Right. Yeah. That's the cool thing about this show. People can interact and ask questions to the audience, to Chris as well. But going back to what I was saying, right? What I was saying was the fact that when you get right down to it, when you get to the point that you seem like the kind of person that you're looking for things that give you that feeling when you create, and you do it all over the place. And some things hit you better than others, but the fact is you're always looking. I admire that about you.
I don't know if I'm actively looking, but I get these ideas. So they come to me, and I'll get this idea and go, oh, hey, I've got a way I can try that. What are you laughing at?
Actually, I think you can. First, I was never live. Can you see the comments there, Krista?
I have us on full screen, so I can exit full screen and see if I can see the comments.
Can you see them?
I don't.
It'll be on the right side.
It says messages from audience will display here, but I do not see any. So
okay, so I don't know. I Was Never Live said that you should make it so the other person can see chat. When I Was Never Live, some of them can see chat, some of them can't see chat. It's hard. That's the downside of an interview show, is you don't know what capabilities are on the other side. You just don't know. Sometimes, right? Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not, and that's just the way it goes. Yeah. So yeah, he also was the one that said, I literally shot God in the head. Now, what's the context of that there? I was never alive, so maybe I can. I sound smarter than I actually am. So, but yeah, no, that's the cool thing about the show, because it's one of those things where people can chat, people can interact, and be part of the show. So maybe he'll answer
I didn't even know this platform existed. So there you go. There's all kinds of these things. It's amazing to me.
Yeah, what I like about this one is it links to a bunch of different places, so people can come and watch and comment as we go here, which is always a cool thing. Right now, I'm just looking at Facebook real quick since you did bring this up. But yeah,
where were we?
Yeah, where were we? I lost that.
Oh, we were talking about different forms of creativity and just how I get these crazy ideas about things that I want to try, and so I try them.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
Well, that's how I started writing, quite frankly. Like,
Well, yeah.
a buddy of mine had written like a novelette, and he gave it to a whole bunch of our friend group to critique it. And so I did that, and he was really happy that I didn't just say, "Oh, this is amazing." I actually said, "Oh, well, you could try tweaking this and this and this," and just that process of critiquing his work made me go, "Hey, I'd kind of like to try that." I'd never written anything before, apart from when you have to write a story in English class in high school. And so that's why I started writing, was because I literally went, "Hey, I'd like to give that a try." And so I had an idea, and I just started writing, and lo and behold, I really liked it. And so I haven't stopped. But it's just like the weird little drawing thing I did, and the quilting thing. It was just an idea I had to try a thing, and there you go.
What excites you more? Krista Wallace narrator, Krista Wallace podcaster, or Krista Wallace writer?
Well, podcaster and narrator are pretty part and parcel, because the only difference in the podcast is that I do an intro for each episode and an outro, but the focus of the podcast is the book, my own work that I'm reading aloud, and that literally gets lifted into the audiobook. So that's why the editing process is so meticulous for me.
Yeah.
So so that's funny. I got my first, I've said this, I told a couple of people this recently, how I got my first story published because of my love of reading aloud. And I got my first audiobook narration gig because of my love of reading aloud at, conventions and things like that. And so reading aloud is something I have loved way longer than I was ever a writer. So I always loved reading aloud from the time I was really little. Like when you're a little kid in primary school and they go through the class and say, "Okay, everybody read aloud from the next section of the book." I know some kids really struggled with that, but I was like, yay, I love that. And then I started reading aloud to my kids when they were about 6 months old. That's just something I've always loved to do. So reading aloud, doing the audiobook narration, further into reading my book on my podcast, that was just a natural progression. The writing was something that came much later, and they're just two. They're two completely different forms of creation, because here's the thing: I was watching the special features on the Lord of the Rings extended edition of the films, and they were talking about it was the scene, the bridge of Khazad-dûm in the Mines of Moria, and they were talking about the storyboard and how here are all the pictures of how the characters are going to come running up and come up behind each other and nearly fall off the bridge before it as it's being destroyed. And I mean, I studied theater, so I've been an actor for a lot longer than I've been a writer as well. And I always wanted to be an actor, but it was watching that little section of the extended features, it really hit me how the actors, they do their thing, but they are doing what the director and the storyboard have told them to do. And it occurred to me in that moment that the writer has so much more control over the characters and their behavior and their reactions than the actors do in that situation. Yet I'm not taking anything away from what the actors do, because I've done that too.
Yeah, no, I know.
But as far as actually telling the story, that was when it really hit me that as a writer I have that I have that power to create those characters and create the story and tell them what I want them to feel, and therefore make the audience feel a certain way because of how I have the characters interacting. So that was just something that hit me when I was watching that particular thing, and it wouldn't necessarily strike other people the same way, but that's. And so you're going back to your question of which do I prefer, writing or reading aloud? They're just completely different monsters. I love the creation of the story. I love the performing of the story. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I asked that because see, I released 5 books, and most people don't remember that, and I'm actually okay with it because again, this is what I do. Yep. Right? This is what I do. This is what people know me for, and I'm great at it. But it doesn't change the fact I've done 5 books I'm very proud of. Totally. Right? And I what I find, like, although it might be a little different because where our podcast is different too, you put a lot more work into the craft of telling a story in the podcast. Mm-hmm. Whereas my podcast, ironically enough, although it is my story, it is also your story. We're collaborating on a conversation is mm-hmm. how I look at it. And so every one of us, so every episode, although I will talk about some of the same things every episode, right? In some ways, I also will talk about different things as well, really depending on where my guest goes. Mm-hmm. For example, like during the acting thing, like for me, I got a lot of respect for actors when I was on set of a film I was involved in, a 40-hour film project. I literally watched 2 actors I had no idea about turn a scene that I read. I was just like, oh, this is all right. It's not great, and they made it something really special. It's like, mm-hmm. I think acting is probably one of the best examples of creativity in a box, because honestly, the story, like, you don't really have much say with what the story of the story being told. But what an actor has a lot to say is how that story is told. Even the director, for all their direction, the truth of the matter is there's a lot of interpretation in that, depending on how an actor sees a character and how and this is like which is why I'm so fascinated by your answer on this, because I have found that I performers have incredible control. I think the great ones recognize it, if that makes sense.
I happened upon a really interesting video that was 3 actors reading, whether it was an actual audition setting, I'm not even sure, but they were reading the same section of script. And of course, each one of them was completely valid in and of itself, and was a marvelous way of bringing that character to life. And yet each one was completely different from the other. And so which of them actually played the role in the film, I couldn't even tell you. I don't remember what they were reading from, but what you're saying about how an actor brings a character to life and each one has a different interpretation, and then it's just up to the director which one works for them in the actual thing. And of course, it's the same in theater. I do more theater. I haven't done a whole ton of film and television. I've done way more theater, but and it's the same thing. When you audition, the director is just looking for who brings the character to life in a way that resonates with them. And yeah, it's a really, really fun and interesting thing. I'm sure if somebody else were to do a read aloud of my book, that would be really interesting to me, actually, to hear how somebody else. I have the luxury of being able to hear my own characters in my head, so I can read them the way I hear them. But even I will do more than one reading of a particular line of dialogue, say, and have to choose which one I like better. So
Yeah, that's the advantage of being like you write it, you can kind of tell it your way. You know, like, do I need permission? When I did the audiobook for Brad, I actually sent him a sample of chapter 1 because it was like, is this what you're looking for? Because I wasn't sure. Like I had an idea of what they sounded like in my head, and I had a lot of fun performing certain characters. I don't love it like you do. Like I no, and because it is meticulous work. It really, I cannot stress enough, guys. Audiobooks, anybody you hire and are paying for are worth their weight in gold because the work required. I mean, you want to talk about quilting being time consuming, right? Oh my gosh, right? Oh my gosh, I cannot stress enough how much work audiobooks really are to do well, and but that was the thing. Like I had to ask because even though I have the voice and it was the right fit, right place, right time, and I can do an audiobook, I had to tell the story a certain way, and and it also was a good gut check for me personally because it's like, well, you had fun with this, but could you do it as a living? Could you do it? And I recognize, like, I'd rather do this. This is way more interesting to me. But for you, see, I think you'd be great at it. And I also think because you love reading aloud and you have your own voice and character, and at heart, you're a performer. And that's so, like, for you, like, I'd be okay at it. I'm not above doing narration here and there. Definitely not. Like I'm definitely, like I said, I can do a Batman voice and I can do all kinds. Like I can have fun telling a story, and I really do enjoy that. But I don't enjoy it enough that I would want to do it day in and day out. I think you, on the other hand, because of what you do, like, yeah, I think you'd be great at it.
It's another form of acting. It's only you there's a style of theater called story theater where the actors narrate the story as well as playing a character. So like you used to see a lot of fairy tales performed this way. So the actor playing Jack in Jack and the Beanstalk would say, and Jack ran towards the beanstalk and just couldn't help himself from climbing it. So the actor narrates the story and does the dialogue. So that's kind of how I see audiobook narration. And there's more than one school of thought too, because sometimes what the author will want or is to just, read me a story. You don't have to put too much into changing the characters' voices and so on and so forth. Just read the story. And I've heard audiobooks done that way, and that's totally fine too. And I would enjoy that just because I like reading aloud. Obviously, I'm recording my own book, so I kind of fell naturally into putting a little bit of nuance into the different characters so you can tell who's speaking. I'm not changing the voices per se, but there's definitely different cadence to each one so you can tell who's speaking. Another author's book, I might not do it the same way. I would do however they wanted me to do it. So if you want me to try to find a different style of voice for each character, then I will try to do that. But if you want me to just read a story as if I'm just reading a story aloud, then I can do that too. So
no, I see. Like, you don't change your voice; you just change the voice depending on the character.
Yeah.
And I did the same thing. Like I did the exact same thing because how else can you tell? Also, I mean, you have to have fun with it too. Because these characters are written a certain way for a certain reason, and usually the author is as playful as you are. It just they're looking at their stories like, okay, I hear this. I don't know about you, but when I write, I hear different voices in my head when I'm doing dialogue and when I'm That's right, folks. I listen to the voices in my head. It's okay. I'm a writer. That's why I'm not in therapy. I write out. But
And when I'm reading a book just to myself too, I mean the author has given each character his or her own voice, and so I can hear that just in the way it's written. Like the way each character has a way of wording things and different little, dialogue quirks. That each character should have their own voice within the story. So even when you're reading it quietly to yourself, you can hear those in your head.
you can hear the characters' actions. Like
Mhm.
so like my second novel for my first novel, the biggest difference. There's no he said, she said, ask a question. None of that's there. Everything is action. Everything is movement. You can tell stories without. It's about what you don't say as much as about what you say. It's about the lines that are there that aren't there. You're playing with the reader, because it's like that's what show and tell really is. Like a show and tell is not about I'm going to tell you exactly what happened. Because this little boy here is about to rob a bank because he feels absolutely terrible. Like, no, you don't want to read that. Like, no one wants to read that or hear that aloud. No one. But the boy cautiously approached the desk, looking down, eyes cast downward. Banker looks up. What's wrong, son? And the gaze, steely-eyed, points the gun. Give me your money. Suddenly it's like right. It went from and there's a lot of like little things in that, because he's looking down where he's not proud of what he's doing. He's like, you're saying a lot of little things. You're adding context to the characters, the things they do, the things they don't do, right? And then other things. Maybe he's fidgeting. Maybe his leg is shaking because he's nervous and scared. Suddenly, all these different things are like, and you add these little things. It tells you things about who the character is right then, right there. That is a completely still hand. Like that's someone that's been practiced doing these nasty, terrible things. Someone that's shaking, maybe he's a little scared. This is his first time. Anything could go wrong. Anything likely could go wrong, right? And these are things like these are decisions we make when we tell a story with words. You're doing the same thing with your voice. You're making decisions. Who is this character? Who isn't this character? Why does this character do this? You know?
Is what sort of a mood is this character in? What is this character? And is he arrogant? Is he proud? Is she playful? Those are all the kinds of little nuances that appear.
And those are the things that tell the real story. Those are the underpinnings. Those are the things you can quietly set up and get the audience PR. Because again, we don't want to be told. We want to see. We want to hear. We don't want to be told. And that took me a very long time to actually figure out. Sorry.
When you're writing, how much are you able to visualize a scene, and as your characters are moving through and the action is going on, do you visualize it as if it's like a movie?
So I go like this now. This is what I do. I go like this. What's the story I'm trying to tell in this scene? And I narrow it down to one sentence. That everything I'm doing now in that scene is about that one sentence. Because much like pitching, much like everything else that we do in storytelling, it's really about getting the point across you want to get a point. Now you can do it a lot of different ways, but everything is about getting to that point. And that's like this thing. So I know the end of the scene, right? I know where the scene's supposed to go and how it's supposed to move forward, right? And but getting to that point. So the things I need, and then at that point, I visualize the things I need, right? How does my character view the world? Like in Lights Out, it's very much the concept of white and shadow, ink and light, right? That's basically how all his visual cues are. Right? And it has nothing to do with the fact I've been illustrating for the last 4 months. Not at all. But but the thing about that is it tells a different story because, like, for example, I can play with expectations. When lights come back up, technology comes back and he's plugged in. The absence of darkness is also just as blinding as total darkness for the first time he comes back. Now he's having to readjust. Now I'm talking like, and one of the things I'm describing is that the world is reconstructing itself shadow by shadow as he's starting to learn how to see again in the dark, right? In the light, actually, not the dark, right? So what that's doing is it's now that imagery creates a very interesting dynamic in your head because now what I've quietly said without actually saying it is he's imagining this world all over again. He's creating the world without actually saying that. But that's the whole point of the scene, is that he's recreating the world in the image of light now instead of darkness. And unlike last time when you didn't have noise and thought and sight, right? His thought, now you're hearing his thoughts as all this noise comes back, as all the distractions come back, which adds to the blinding effect now, because now instead of having this clear idea, now you're distorting it with the distractions and the noise. And that's how I visualize, and that's that particular scene in the story, which will tell a bigger picture of where I want it to go. That's how I that's the big, like me in my first novel and me in this story, that's the biggest difference. I always had a clear idea where the story was going to go, but I didn't worry about the micro stuff of how can these scenes get me there brick by brick. I'm not really plotting exactly anymore, but I'm not pantsing it either. I call myself a planter, right? I'm doing a little bit of both.
Okay.
I let myself discover things because it's cool. Right, I write to discover. It's a big thing why I write. I write. That joy of discovery is a big part of it. So I'll never completely not pants. But what's the story I'm trying to tell here? What am I trying to get across to the audience without actually saying it? Like you said, and I just showed you a really interesting example: playing with lights. Well, it's blinding, which distorts expectations because with lights we see, right? Now he can't see anything, he hears anything, and now his mind is conjuring up this world that he was a part of just a few scant weeks ago. And does he see it the same way before? That's the story I'm telling right this minute. That's interesting to me. Right? Now, I did not have that until the second novel. And so when I write the sequel to my first novel, it's going to be very interesting to see how I write that book now, knowing what I know. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Sure.
I know. I actually find it really interesting to hear how other writers approach their creating, because I definitely am not a planner. No. I definitely go through the world along with my characters, and a character says a thing, then I have to get into the next character's head and go, oh, how is she going to react to that? Okay.
I still do that. I still that's a big part of, because conversations, that's what conversations do. Like, how often did we go on tangents in this last little bit, right? I mean, we did, right? Because that's real. That's a real conversation. Conversations go on tangents, right? And when you do dialogue with for a screenplay, I mean, you got to be very careful how much of that you have. Yeah, but right, because
I mean, that's the trick, is that dialogue shouldn't really be conversation. Like there's the odd time where a conversation fits in a particular scene, but otherwise the dialogue has to be serving a purpose of the story. But yeah, and I don't plan very much at all, which is why I'm struggling with this final book in my in my trilogy in 4 parts, because I have to tie everything together, all this stuff that I created, like kind of like popcorn.
It's like popcorn. It exploded
Exactly.
all over, and you're like, oh shit, what do I do with this?
Oh, here's an idea. Pooh. Here's what. Oh, I wonder what this character's up to. Pooh. And now I've got a whole subplot that I didn't know was going to happen. Oh, okay.
I actually said, like, it just happened to me. Like, I was trying to figure out, actually, the only really scary picture, right, a really scary picture I'm gonna have in part 3. I wanted to figure out how I was going to get there, and last night, like when I was writing, I figured out how I was going to get there. It came to me that honestly with a very interesting perspective about it, and it was like, I did not have this in here earlier. I really should have this here. And that's actually is the only reason why I need to put any description at all in part 1 is this scene. I'm gonna have to put it in because it sets up everything else I'm going to do right later on. But again, I stumbled onto it. Like, I just saw it. But I always have a sense of where the story is supposed to end. Is that so? No, not you.
I don't always have an idea of where the story's going to end. Yeah, I've gotten into trouble a few times that way. Because I'm just past the halfway point podcasting book 2. So the first half of book 2 is out as an audiobook now. The reason the book is so long is, well, it's not the only reason the book is so long, but it's a long damn book. I was writing towards a particular scene, which I thought was the end of the book. And when I got there, and of course I'm jumping all over the place because I don't write sequentially. But I got to this one scene that I thought was the end of the book, and I realized, oh crap, the story's not over. So I had to then plow through and write the end of the book. Actually, the rest of the book I did write sequentially, which was weird. And there were times when I had to stop and take a couple of days off because I'd sort of hit a wall and run into a problem, and I didn't know how to solve a certain problem. So then I just walk away for 3 days and let my subconscious mind handle it. And then something goes ping, and think of it like a Tetris game where all of a sudden the right piece has fit in and everything else goes clink, 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 clink and falls into place. And then I could write the rest of the book.
Woo, Tetris.
I cannot play Tetris. I can't play Tetris. I actually haven't played Tetris for years, but I learned that I should not play Tetris just before going to bed, because then I would dream about Tetris all night. busy, frantic dreams about fitting pieces in.
So
yeah, there's a little thing.
I had a buddy. He stayed the night at my place. We played Tetris, like, that literally happened to him at my house. He was playing Tetris, and at like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, he had this nightmare of blocks falling on him.
Oh yeah, like, yeah, I get it. Yeah, I get it.
You know, I see. I'm good at Tetris, but I also like worked in a warehouse where I put boxes into trucks for a living for years and years. So I know my algorithm.
Packing a van to move? Oh yeah.
Oh, I've done that too. Like, yeah. But that's algorithms. That's all that is. It's the same thing. Ultimately, it's like I'm trying to make this fit as neatly as I can. You know, most of the time I'm good at it. Every once in a while, I have a day where I shat the bed, but I mean, it happens, right? And no, no, like you need that time. Something like it's always good to have multiple projects on the go. I think the hardest thing for me at this point is because I think I'm so smart in storytelling and stuff, and we'll see how correct that is in like a more weeks. But the thing about it is now is I got to do the hard thing now. I got to talk to see. It's so easy for me to build other people up and tell them they're awesome, but now I got to do the same thing for myself now. Ladies and gentlemen, I am awesome and possibly made of cheese. Monterey Jack all the way, but I've been a freelancer for a year, and the biggest like 3 lessons I've learned one, you got to figure out what your niche is, who you are as a creator. Number
Mm-hmm.
two, you have to constantly be in the phrase to sell yourself. That's not as hard. Once I figured out what sales actually was, that's not that hard. Sales is storytelling. It just has a very clear objective. Are you going for yeses and nos? Yes, I will work. You want more yeses than nos, ideally, but that's not how the world works, right? So you fish for yeses and nos. Yes, I will write this story for you. No, I will not. I will not take this story from you. Yes, this is an amazing concept you have here. No, this sucks balls. I actually had one freelancer editing magazines. You're not good enough for this place yet. Come back in a few years. Like, thanks. Go ahead.
Okay. All right.
Right.
What's the third thing?
Right. And the third thing is you have to get into the habit of tooting your own horn. You have to. There's no. I think Canadians are the guiltiest people in the world for this one. We don't do our own. No, we are. We're terrible at it. We've been taught that we're just okay at this. No, we have some of the most talented people on the planet, but we don't very. Okay, look, straight up, right? I write. I'm gonna go with me first before I compliment you because I don't want this to be like again. I don't want to duck the easy thing. I write very well. I'm a world-class interviewer. I don't doubt that in my mind. I'm a good podcaster. I'm an okay broadcaster. I dabble in illustration. And these are just a glimpse of the things I'm capable of doing. I'm good. I'm an award-winning podcaster. All right. So, and I've written 5 amazing books. I'm pretty freaking awesome. I really am. All right. You're a performer. You're a podcaster. You're a narrator. I didn't talk about my narrating stuff like that. I forgot. But I mean, again, you just look at everything you do and on the back looking forward, right? We all do incredible things. And this is an industry where you have to be willing to go out there and say, look at me, I'm good at what I do. And this is why you should believe in me. And there's a really, again, it's not, the counter, I gave this advice to a friend of mine today. It's not really about the money. Ironically, you get money for this sometimes, but it's about convincing people I'm worth working with, or have you work, or have you me work for you, right? One of those three. I will bring incredible things to the table, and I'm the kind of person that you want to have on your team. That's pitching in a nutshell. Really, that's sales in a nutshell too, right? But you got to get into that habit of being out there and saying, I'm great at this, and this is why. And that's a hard thing for a lot of people. But I realize like that's the mindset you need to have.
And I think too that I've just accepting that the reason there are so many writers is because there are so many readers. And I know you talked about this with other guests too, just about how we could each get the same story idea, and we would each create something that was completely different because we have different styles, we have different voices, all of that. And people will be interested in reading one. They might like one story better than another. I mean, there are writers that I love. There are writers that I don't like. And my opinion on other people's writing is not the same as what yours would be, or what your other audience members' opinions are about writers. So I am writing the story, like my little subheading of my podcast is, they say, write the story that you want to read. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm writing a story that I want to read, and I just have to trust that there's an audience for it, because I know I'm not the only person who would enjoy reading a story like that. There are billions of people in the world, and everybody's got different opinions on different things. And so I'm just creating the story that I love, And I hope that other people enjoy it too. And I know some will. I know some will not. I know some will think my writing is great and some will think my writing is shit. And that's okay. It's just, I am writing a story that I'm proud of and that I enjoy. And a friend of mine shared with me a little piece called something by James Artemis Owens, and it's the Eggs Benedict theory. So if you are a restaurateur and you make Eggs Benedict and you have a customer come into your restaurant and your customer says, "Hey, I see that you have Eggs Benedict on your menu. Can you tell me a little bit about that? I really like Eggs Benedict and I would like to try it." And if you say, "Well, it's okay. I mean, we make Eggs Benedict. It's got an English muffin and it's got some ham and it's got some eggs and, we pour the sauce over it. It's pretty fine, Eggs Benedict." How excited are you going to be about trying that? Versus if you go into another restaurant where the restaurateur says, "Oh, you want Eggs Benedict? You should definitely try our Eggs Benedict. It is made, our hollandaise sauce is homemade. It's buttery. It's just delicious and flavorful. It's got just the right amount of salt to it. Our English muffin is toasted to perfection, so it's soft, but there's a little crunch. The ham is grilled so that the flavors really pop, and the egg will never be cooked a way you don't like it to be. However you want that egg cooked, you just tell me and it will be absolutely perfect. Our Eggs Benedict are off the charts." How excited are you about trying that?
I'm hungry now. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Yes.
So,
But
how good are any of us at saying, "Oh my God, you will love my book. You will absolutely love it. I know it's this and it's this and it's this." Well, that's hard to do. But what I can do is be proud of what I have created and put it out there for people to find and let people know that it's there. Hey, I've created this thing. Give it a try. If it's not to your taste, that's okay. But I think that some people will really enjoy it. And what's coming back to me in this last year is that a lot of people are really enjoying it. So, yay!
So I'm going to ask one very fun question, just because this is going to be good. Why did you want to write this story?
I wanted to create a character I had never seen before. I wanted to create a female protagonist who didn't defer to the men around her. I wanted to create a character who says what's on her mind. In real life, we have to be a lot more guarded. We can't always be completely honest. And in a lot of books, people don't say the things they feel. And a lot of writers create conflict by people not speaking their minds to each other. And I wanted to do the opposite. I wanted to create a character who speaks her mind, who is honest about how she feels, and is also willing to accept the consequences that occur. So I guess that is why I started writing this particular story.
So why that? I know it sounds like a lame cop out, but it just I don't want this. I have a reason I'm going somewhere, but I am going somewhere with this.
Okay.
The reason I said you want someone that wants to speak your mind, is it just because you said never before that because it needs to be in fiction? Specifically, why did you want to write this? Is it just because it's never been done, or is there another reason behind that? I feel like there's more to that. I could be wrong, and if I am wrong, I'm wrong. But I'm not
sure. I like I said,
okay.
I wanted to write a story that I wanted to read. I wanted to create a character that I had not found. And now that's not to say that a character I would like as much as I like Kier Halladin. Maybe another character like that exists somewhere and I just didn't come across her. I had not, when I started writing this story, I had not found somebody like her. And so that's why I wanted to create.
So now I'm going to tell you why I asked that question and try to go a little deeper.
Okay.
because right there and then is the start of your pitch if you ever had to pitch it to somebody. Because the reason I brought, like you mentioned this earlier, like it's hard to really like build up like that. It's hard to fabricate passion that isn't there. But when I asked you about her, you lit up.
Oh yeah,
Right, you
because
lit
she's
up.
awesome.
Right, you lit up. And I bring this up because it's something I've noticed with a lot of people I've interviewed. Period. I think my personal favorite was Sophia. So we were premiering her song, and here she is dancing to her own music. I cannot think of a better I enjoyed that tremendously simply because for me it was like, okay, this is a good song. Even though I'd heard the whole thing, I knew it was a good song, but it's a good song for one very, very simple reason. She's into her own work. Like she believes in it, right? And when you were describing your character, now I want to go see if there's a little bit more like of a personal bit of a stake to it. But if there isn't, that's totally fine. The point is, like, if I were to sell your story from your position, that's where I'd start. Because honestly, that's where you are. You're lively, you're vibrant, you're passionate. Like the other Benedict story that changed both there, right? Is one of the other reasons not only did it make me hungry, but you could sense the pride that the second restaurant owner, like you could sense that the first guy didn't believe his own stuff. You could sense it. And we have a tendency as human beings, when we hear that lack of faith in people, in themselves, we tend to believe them.
Well, that's exactly the point of that story, precisely.
Well, that's one. But the other part is when it's the other way around. When people are enthusiastic about, like we talk about, you could hear it, the pride in the sauce, pride in the fact that I'll cook it any way you want. Like you could hear not only the pride but the joy in the creation of that, the way you described that, right? That's a huge, like chemically, that's a huge difference. I'm gonna follow. Look, this might be the shittiest egg Benedict I've ever eaten. I don't know, but you know what? It's not gonna be for a lack of effort. Like, right? And I think that's the difference, right? And I think it's a real difference. People know when they believe in their efforts. You know what I mean? So
yeah. Your point about music is a good one too. It's driving me crazy. I'm sitting here trying to think. The guy who sings the Banana Boat song. What the heck is it?
No,
Harry Belafonte. Harry Belafonte. Okay, so I bring him up just because he's the one who said this. It's and I totally agree. It's really important as a singer to sing the songs that I love to sing. So what Harry Belafonte said was that he didn't want to ever record a song that he doesn't love. His most famous song is the Banana Boat song, and he has to sing it every time he performs. And if he hated that song, that would become like the most painful thing in the world to do. And so he still loves that song. He still loves to sing that song. So where I'm going is that you need to love what you're working on. What's the point of putting it out there if you don't love it?
Yep.
I don't know if the analogy with the performing works, but
that's exactly it.
Yeah, I'm a jazz singer. I used to sing in a rock band too, but I'm a jazz singer. I can't stand "Fly Me to the Moon." This is like this big popular song that Frank Sinatra recorded, and it's like everybody loves "Fly Me to the Moon." And fine, I mean, if the band wants to do it, fine. I'll sing it, and I will do the best job I can at it. But it's not my favorite tune, and my band knows that that's not my favorite tune. So they will often leave it off a set list because I don't love singing the song. That you can tell the songs that I love to sing, because I will get into them so much more than the ones that are just meh.
And it translates. No,
Yeah.
it legitimately translates, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, and that's kind of the point, right? And I find like since you're talking a little bit about your works and why you're awesome, it's like, oh, don't say that, don't say that. No, but I mean, like, it's that healthy balance. It's that healthy balance of having the ego to say my work is good, and you have to end. It's why it's so important to be authentic and love what you do, because if you don't, you're fucked. Like, I mean, either you're going to become a lie, which is terrible. It's a terrible fate. Conan Doyle hated Holmes. You could tell that towards the end he hated Holmes, but Holmes was a hit. So he had so what was he to do? It paid his bills. I'm sure he'd rather do more Lost World, because Lost World's awesome. But Holmes, after he came back from the dead, you can tell when he killed off Holmes, like, oh, thank God, he's gone. Gone. I can do something else. And then his publisher said, it'd be great, more Sherlock Holmes. But I killed him. Right? And you're like, yeah, but you can bring him back. I don't want to bring him back. Don't do this to me. Right? You could tell there was a certain catharsis when he killed Holmes, and when he brought him back, it was like, I'm just stuck fighting this for the rest of my life. Yeah, exactly. It's why I think for me, like, the only thing I can read post him coming back, other than the story of his resurrection, is Hound of the Baskervilles. And the reason why I can read Hound of the Baskervilles is because Holmes is hardly in the book. Right? Right. It's one of those things, like, he found a very clever way of taking Holmes out of the equation until it was in time to solve the case. Right? But by and large, this was a Dr. Watson story disguised as a Holmes one.
There's another one. Well, it's actually a Stephen King story called The Doctor's Case, and a friend of mine made the film. So Stephen King has this program where he's got all these short stories, and anybody can apply to take on this story and turn it into a film. And so my friend James Douglas took The Doctor's Case and filmed it, turned it into a little short film. So that's just a little apropos of
Also, Dr. Watson.
But exactly, that was my point, was that's a case that Dr. Watson solved. Sherlock Holmes was having a reaction, and Dr. Watson solved the case. So it's a fun one.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the thing. Like, you can tell. Like, so that's why, again, if there's nothing else from this conversation, once you get past about hour minute 47, you do this. Pursue what even during that, pursue what you love, because ultimately, that is living, and that is the true nature of rebellion in this world, is chasing joy. It truly is. So. There you go. That's our moral of the story.
Josh's moral of the story.
Yeah, that's it. What's Krista's moral of the story? I'm now afraid to ask. Don't ask me.
Well, yeah. I mean, just do what feels right. Yeah. I would say it's pretty much the same thing. Just. Yeah.
That's where our conversation went through that. So and actually, that's a good place to be.
Well, I'll it'll be 2 hours from now. I'll go, I know what I should have said, and then I'll be texting you like, okay, can you add that, stick that in comments?
It would be hilarious if you did. It'd be hilarious. We wrap this up. We do like a YouTube skit. Oh, I know what I was going to say here. We just filmed like text messages going back and forth, and me losing my mind.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, for the love of God, keep talking now. I don't know how to stop her.
Story of my life, to just replay every conversation and go, oh, I should have said that, and I should have said that, and I should not have said that.
Meh. I shouldn't have said a lot of things. That's okay. I did it anyway. Let's move on. People, here's the thing: if you're openly honest about it, most of the time, there is no such thing as an unforgivable mistake. There's no such thing, right? Right? There's just being open enough to admit that you made us that you were an idiot in that moment, and we all moved on, right? I learned it. I learned this in elementary school of all places. So I'm grade 7. I go up to the front of the class. Along the way, I was wearing these short shorts and a sweater. And along the way, nature took its course, and everybody could see it. Just unfortunately, just how things worked out. And you know what? As it took years to live that down, years. But for all of that, I was grateful that I went through that, because it honestly taught me one of the most valuable lessons I've ever learned, is that nobody cares. and that's honestly, I honestly think that's a great lesson. It really doesn't matter how bad you screw up, because I guarantee everybody around you, unless you do something that's like on an epic scale that you have read that we're going to be recorded in history, no one's going to notice tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
They might tell fond stories of your fuck up, but that was because they love you, and this is their way of keeping you humble. But no one really cares.
Yeah.
And that's I think one of the best lessons you can ever make. So going back to chasing joy, not being afraid to look bad and stupid. Guess what? It really does. No one's gonna care that I murdered. Falling in Love is Harder Than Leaves. Like, I murdered the song. It died. You could literally hear it die on stage. It died. It was at least quick. I mean, that's the one thing I will say about it. It was a very quick death to the song. Poor Heather to the song. I'm sorry.
Well, it comes to risk and reward. If you're going to do a thing, sure, there's a risk that you're not going to be great at it, but there's also a reward for taking the risk. And like my husband always said to our kids, is whenever they were like, oh, I don't know whether I should do this thing, the question is always, well, what's the worst thing that could happen? And then, so if you already jump to what's the worst thing that can happen and think through how you're going to deal with that, then all you have to do is, well, what's the likelihood of that happening versus anything else that could happen? So if that's the worst thing, and we've now talked through what that is, and that doesn't sound that bad, too difficult to handle, okay, go for it. Well, so that helps you think through that, and maybe actually try a thing that might be new to you, or that might be scary, or should I or shouldn't I? What's the worst thing that can happen? There's risk and reward.
Mm-hmm. And the question is the reward worth the risk? But
Exactly.
All said, I miss you. I'll say this honestly. I miss you. You're a very joyful person. Honestly, and I mean that. Like, you bring a very nice. You carry yourself in a way that it makes a lot of people around you brighter. And I'm hoping this year there will come an opportunity again. Like, I think past the social distance, where you can get together with people again. I think that is coming, one way or the other. And when that does, I think people will remember just how wonderful you are, and hopefully, eventually, I'll get that opportunity to do so again. I miss you, my friend, and I hope I wish you nothing but the best going forward.
Absolutely, you too. Thank you so much. I miss hugs, and I miss all of my people. And boy, oh boy, there's going to be some epic hugging going on when we're able to all get together again.
Yep. But beyond all that, you do have a podcast. You do books and stuff, and you probably do other things. But this is the time maybe you should plug all that wonderful stuff and let people know who you are, why you rock, and where people can find you.
Well, my website is KristaWallace.com. That's Krista with a K. And I have a podcast called Totally Fantastic Title, which is it's on Podbean, so totallyfantastictitle.podbean.com, but it's also up on where other podcasts can be found, on Spotify and Apple and various, wherever. Verbal is a new audio platform, VURBL. It's up there too. And like I said, as I podcast my book, I finish a book and then I publish it as an audiobook. So my audiobooks are available on various audiobook platforms like Apple and Google Play and Chirp. And all of that is on my website. So all my music stuff is on there too, and I have totally fantastic title Facebook page, and the Itty Bitty Big Band Facebook page. That's my jazz duo, and I think there's also a Fat Jazz Facebook page. That's my big band. So there's all kinds of ways you can find me.
Is it fat as an FAT or is it fat?
FAT.
Okay.
No, it's FAT, and it's actually short for Friends and Teachers. The big band is made up of, it was started in like 1985 originally, created by a bunch of music teachers in the district who wanted to recall how much they enjoyed playing and making music as well as teaching music. So they all got together and started a band, and then in order to fill out all the rest of the sections, because there's like 18 to 20 people in a big band, that's where the friends come in. So I am not a teacher, I'm one of the friends. So it's Friends and Teachers, Fat Jazz, and of course Fat does have that whole connotation of big sound and cool tunes. So Fat Jazz.
Fat Jazz.
And
all right.
Itty Bitty Big Band.
Itty Bitty Big Band.
Yeah, so, that's my jazz duo.
Yes. On that note, guys, that is tonight's podcast with the one and only Krista Wallace. And this is why she's awesome and she does many amazing things. She really does. And I am straight up. I mean, this is my 1-year anniversary as a freelancer. I really do not know how I ended up with so many amazing people in my life. But for everybody, thank you very much. And including you, Krista. So, guys, I am very, very close to being an affiliate on Twitch. I am so close, it's not even funny. I have the numbers. Now I just need the watches. So, I got 3 more podcasts this week. If anyone can go to my channel, twitch.tv/justjoshingpodcast. Go watch the show there. Make comments. They say absurd things. I will answer them as they come. That all said, that's big. I'm literally right at the door, so I'm just hoping to walk through the rest of the way. Outside of that, stay inspired, keep shining in the dark, and I'll see you guys Wednesday with a very special guest. But until then, guys, peace.
Thanks for having me, Josh. See you later.